Hey there, everyone. This is going to be my last video blog from AES. We are back. We got back last night around 11:30. I was going to do this last night, but I had a project to do, so kind of did that first. Anyways, I just kind of wanted to recap the whole overall weekend. And first, I'm going to start off by saying that if you weren't there, you should have been there. I know people had conflicts, money issues, whatever, but it's definitely an experience. And I think our hotel, the registration was $100. Our hotel ended up being $70 a person for the 2 nights, and I think, at least for my car, gas came to be like $25 a person. So we paid not even $200 to go up to this, and it was worth all of that, plus the not sleeping for 38 hours or whatever it was, and spending 20 hours in a car, and losing people on the subway, and getting on a shiesty looking bus, and it was a phenomenal experience. So just gonna kind of go through, I think, the whole weekend. We got there Friday morning. The first thing we did after we got registered and everything, we checked out the gear exhibits, which, let me tell you, anything that has to do with gear is released at AES. They show off everything. I mean, we went through and we're checking out big SSL consoles and API consoles and all kinds of just gear everywhere. I talked to people from like Sennheiser, I talked to people from Apogee, checked out all kinds of, there's just racks of like outboard gear, and they like plug an iPod in with some like drum tracks, and you put headphones on, and you like just can switch between which compressor or preamp you want to run it through, and just can A/B everything, and it was phenomenal. I have a list this long of things that I want. After that, we went over first to the Career and Education Fair, which was mostly just an education fair. There were a couple companies there that had stuff about internships, but there were a lot of schools that had like booths set up. And so a goal of mine is to get Capital a booth to have it that next year, because I think it would be really good, and we can really talk a lot about our program. Because one thing I noticed from talking with different people out there is I said, oh, I'm from Capital in Columbus, and most everyone was like, what's that? Do you guys have a music tech program? Like, a lot of people weren't really sure about it, so I think it'd be really sweet if we had a table set up. And let's see, so we checked out some like grad schools when we were there, talked to a guy about like forensic audio, which is not really what I see myself doing, but it would be kind of cool anyways. After that was Platinum Producers, and I blogged about it a little bit. I'm trying to remember who all was on it. I have it in my pages of notes here. David Weiss was the moderator, and the panel was Steve Jordan, David Kahn, and Gabe Roth. These guys have all produced a lot of things. Steve Jordan, besides producing all kinds of crazy things, plays drums for John Mayer, including the John Mayer Blues Trio. Gabe Roth kind of does a lot of analog. His studio's all analog, and he does a lot of like R&B kind of things and just kind of like bluesy sort of things. And one thing he said in the thing, he's like, we have our sound, that's what we do, we don't do anything else. And David Kahn's kind of just been all over the place doing some different things, but they talked about what it was like what it's like working with musicians and playing the role of producing and possibly engineering as well. Let's see if there's anything here. They talked first about why is it that artists call them, and they were just kind of all saying, they were all kind of saying that their skills as musicians was one of the big reasons that artists called them to produce their records. And let's see. Oh, later on that day was a thing with Ben Folds, and he just got up and really, I mean, they just talked about him. He was interviewed, and that was really awesome. They kind of went through his whole entire career and what it was like through the different phases of his career with the Ben Folds 5 and the solo stuff and his stuff collaborating with other people, and now getting Ben Folds 5 back together. And he's hilarious, first of all. Awesome to sit and listen to talk, and had a lot of great insight. Actually, Ryan Pachuta recorded a bunch of these, so we're figuring out how we're going to get those available for others of you to listen to and kind of check out for yourself, because there's no way I'm going to hit on everything, especially like that day. I was so tired that I don't remember things. Let's see. So that was Friday night. We got done with the Ben Folds thing, and we checked out some more stuff around the convention. I don't think we went to anything else that night. And then kind of took off to the hotel relatively early because we were all really tired, and just kind of hung out there for the evening, went to sleep. So Saturday morning we got up, and I went to a mastering for vinyl thing, which is Ryan put it, there was a lot of useful information there that went right over my head. Like, I knew vinyl was kind of a complicated like art form, but it was like crazy. Like, I didn't even understand half of the things they were talking about, other than like this little EQ curve that he showed. So I'm still kind of trying to decipher some of that and go through it some more and kind of get a better grasp. I keep looking over the notes and going back and remembering what they talked about. Actually during that time, Albert and a couple of the other guys went to an engineering for voice, and then kind of talked about different vocal techniques and how to best capture different vocal sounds. So if you want any information on that, hit up one of those guys, because I know that they all came out of there really pleased with that session. After that was Platinum Engineers, and the presenters on that were Dave Friedman, Chris Shaw, Peter Cadis, and Damian Taylor. Alright, so Dave Friedman did all of the Flaming Lips stuff. He did a Weezer album, some MGMT stuff, and some OK Go stuff. And let's see, Chris Shaw did some some stuff with Public Enemy. He did Weezer's Blue album and some stuff with Bob Dylan. Peter Cadis has done a bunch of stuff with The National, which is a really cool indie band that you should check out, and also Interpol. And Damian Taylor actually did he's done a couple of albums now with Bjork, and one of the things he did this last album, he actually learned Max MSP and created these instruments with like iPads and video game controllers that Bjork could like just walk in the studio in front of this microphone and start hitting these buttons, and it would play different patches and stuff. And they actually ended up finding a organ builder to make a pipe organ that was MIDI controlled, so they could use all these MIDI and get the sounds that she had done in the studio, but then actually use a real organ and record the real organ actually playing. So that was really cool. The topic of the presentation was using the studio as an instrument, and that was a really interesting take, because a lot of these guys have kind of danced the line between engineering and producing a lot of stuff. They all kind of they started off all kind of like telling their story, like how they ended up where they are at this point, and then they played, I think they played 2 tracks that each person had engineered, and they kind of talked about some techniques they used on that, and I won't go through all of that, but there are a couple of things, like Peter Cadis was talking about a really cool like drum room mic thing where he took a couple of ribbon mics and like pointed them at the floor just a couple feet back from the drum set on either side, and they're bidirectional, so they're picking up the floor and the ceiling. So that's something that I'm personally going to try out sometime. And they kind of just all went through and like talked about these different records they had done and some different tries that they had, different techniques that they had tried on those. After that was the Grammy Sound Table, and that was the topic of this was songs that changed my life, and the moderator was Chris Lord-Ouch, and the panel was Ken Phil, I think is how you pronounce his name. He went by Duro. Steve Lillywhite, Ann Mincelli, Phil Ramone, and Al Schmidt. So that was like star-studded, like super awesome panel. It was really awesome to go check out. And the basis of what they did was they each picked like 2 songs that really had changed their life. They actually each kind of had different takes of doing that. For instance, Steve Lillywhite did a U2 song that he had produced and a Matchbox 20 song that he had produced, because they were both key points in his career, that like things that like defining moments of his career. So that's how he kind of like picked songs based for like changing his life. But then we had some people like Ann Mincelli played a Beatles tune in my life, because since she was a little kid, like she grew up listening to that, and that was one of the things that inspired her. So that one, it was a really interesting session, but it was a lot of like, wasn't so much like technical, like, oh well, I like this because it's EQ'd this way and there's preamp and use this compressor and this much. It was more just like why certain songs have stuck with them throughout their life and what it is that makes songs do that. So after that session on Saturday, I think we ran through the gear exhibits a little more, because it's always fun to run through gear exhibits. And then we just kind of hit the streets of New York. We walked all the way from the convention center up through Times Square up to the Apple Store on 5th Avenue right by Central Park. So that was almost like a 2.5 mile walk, but I mean, it was really cool to check out the city. And went to the Apple Store so Albert could get an iPhone. Then found out that you actually had to reserve an iPhone and then stand in this crazy, crazy long line to actually get an iPhone. So he didn't get an iPhone yet. But it was so sweet to go check out the Apple Store. That's the glass block that you like walk into and then go down the stairs, and it's all actually underground. Except for they're actually rebuilding the glass cube thing, so it was like covered with a white thing. It almost just looked like a box that an Apple, like an iPad, would come in or something. But it was still sweet to check out like the cool Apple Store, and there were 1.5 million people there, obviously. And after that, we hopped on the subway to go down to NYU, and when we went to do that, we got on the subway, like half of us, and it was really full, that train. So like Ryan and Albert and Jesse and I think Evan maybe like walked down to try and get on another train, and as they went to get in there, the doors shut, so they were stuck at this subway station. Half of us were like on our way downtown already, and they were still there, and we're in the subway, so nobody has cell phone service to be like, hey. So we were all a little confused. Luckily, the stop that we were getting off at to go to NYU was labeled NYU, so everybody knew where to go. So we met up with them after I got the group of us that was with me lost a few times because my iPhone compass wasn't pointing in the right direction. And so there we went up to NYU's studio. Is just new. They were telling me this one we were in was just a couple years old. We went up there and had pizza. A bunch of different students were there. I got to meet people from all over the place, like Florida. I talked to people from Atlanta, people from like Japan. Talked a lot with some people from Kent State, actually, who were probably going to be helping them out and getting started their own AES section up there, because they've only had a program for a few years now, and there are a couple guys up there that wanted to get one started. And we talked to some people from Boston as well. Shout out to them. The Bruins still suck, although I doubt they'll even watch this. But we went through NYU studio and ate pizza, whatever, and they have a pretty nice setup there. as far as I was concerned, I was impressed with the setup, and then I remembered that I was at NYU and kind of expected more than I saw. But their main control room, they have a big SSL console. They have some API pre's and some Neve pre's and different compressors and stuff. The one really cool thing that I noticed about this space was there's a bunch of TV screens all over the place, and you can either pull them up as computer monitors, or you can video link between the control room and the live room, and then this other room they have that they do a bunch of crazy stuff in. I'll get into it in a second. So that was kind of cool. So you could kind of, because there didn't have really great windows. Like if you were sitting at the console, you'd have to go back really far to look through a window to see in the live room. So it was cool that they had that video thing set up so you could still see what was going on. Their live room was pretty nice. There were a lot of options as far as acoustically, where they had these panels that you could pull off the wall, you could move, you could set them up. There are these things that you could pull out of the wall and actually fold open. They turned into gobos. So that was really neat, because the room was actually just a big rectangle. So they had a lot of interesting treatments in there. And then there was this other room that they could also record from, but it was set up. They had 16 of the smaller sized Genelec monitors, in a circle, around the ceiling, and then around the middle section, and then down closer to the floor. And I was talking to a lady there, and she said they use that for a bunch of experiments in 3D audio, and she said that for some reason they couldn't go in there and actually play their demo test thing, so we could really check it out. So that was a little disappointing, but it would have been cool. But yeah, that was the party. It was really cool to talk to a lot of people. I got cards from people. We actually, right before we left, ran into John Crivet, who is the head of the education section of AES. So that's so he was really interested. I'm going to be working with him some more, because he wants to hear about kind of our experience in getting a section started, and then getting up to AES and some different things. Let's see. So then that was that. We ran around New York a little bit, some more after that. Finally caught another subway back to the bus station. Took the bus back to the hotel. Went to bed. It was probably 12:30 or so at that point. Then we got up Sunday, and I think Taylor went in to the convention before the rest of us did, because he wanted to go check out a thing for about panning for line arrays. So you can probably, if you check out his blog that he did, which I think was aesbytaylor.tumblr.com, you can probably hear some more about that. The rest of us rolled in 9:30 or so, 9:45, and me and Ryan and Emily and Evan all kind of went back in. Actually, no, Evan wasn't with us. He forgot. Yeah, Albert and Evan both had forgotten their badges, because we packed up the cars before we left, and they both left their badges in the car, so they couldn't get back in. So them two, and then Jesse just went with them too, kind of ran around New York, and I don't even really know what they did. But so you have to ask them about that. But the rest of us went back in and checked out even more gear. It was kind of nice to go through the gear this time, because there were a lot less people in there Sunday morning, because some people already left convention and it was still earlier in the morning. So it was cool, because we got more of a chance to actually sit and talk with people and get some hands-on experience. I found out that Pro Tools, if you have the student edition, you get free upgrades for 4 years. So in my case, I bought the student edition of Pro Tools 9 back in February, so I actually am going to be able to get Pro Tools 10 for free. I'm just waiting to get that email. Talk to Sweetwater too, trying to figure out what's going on with that. And actually also, heads up to you who may not have Pro Tools yet and are considering buying it, Pro Tools 11 is going to be out. I don't know if it's going to be called that, but it's going to be out next year, and it's going to be a full 64-bit release. So that'll be really sweet. If you're thinking about getting Pro Tools, I'd say definitely first of all buy it while you're a student, so you can get the student edition and spend less money and get the free upgrades for 4 years. But that's just something to think about. If you were planning on buying it now, there's going to be a new edition. So if you're not going to be able to get the student edition, then I'd probably suggest just to wait, because if not, you're just going to be handing Avid more of your money. So we ran through the gear, and then after that, we just kind of took off, got some really good New York pizza before we left, and then drove for 10 hours. It didn't actually, the drive back didn't seem to feel that long. We left about noon. I guess we probably didn't get, we got here at 11, it was probably 11 hours, but we actually, my car swung by my hometown so I could go home and grab a few like winter clothes and stuff, which I know you all just really love to hear about. But so, yeah, that was the trip. Once again, we're already, I believe the convention's going to be in San Francisco next year. So it'll be a little more of a logistical thing to get some people out there, but I definitely want to get some people out there. So start saving your money. See ya.